On a warm summer night in 1912, in the quiet small town of Villisca, Iowa, a brutal and chilling crime was about to take place. The Moore family, consisting of Josiah and Sarah Moore and their 4 children, along with 2 of their neighbors' children, were all going to bed in their modest 2-story home. The town had no idea that by morning, 8 of them would be dead, brutally murdered with an axe. The Moore family lived on 2nd Street, and on that fateful night, they had guests Lena and Ina Stillinger, 2 young girls who were friends of the Moore children. After a fun evening of playing, the children all went to bed. Josiah and Sarah Moore, who were in their late 40s, had tucked their kids in and turned in for the night. Everything appeared normal, and there was nothing to suggest that anything would go wrong. At some point during the night, someone entered the Moore home and committed one of the most gruesome acts of violence ever seen in small-town America. The murderer, or murderers, used an axe to bludgeon the family to death. They struck Josiah and Sarah first, likely while they were still asleep. The children, including the 2 girls, were also killed in their beds with brutal force. In total, 8 people were killed. The axe was found at the scene, and it was clear that the killer had struck each victim multiple times. The next morning, the Moore children did not show up for their usual activities, and the Stillinger girls were missing too. Concerned, a neighbor named Mary Peckham went to check on them. When she looked through the window, she noticed that the curtains were drawn, which was unusual for the Moore family. She knocked on the door, but received no response. Fearing something was wrong, she contacted the local sheriff. The sheriff, along with a group of locals, forced their way into the house. What they found was horrific. The bodies of the Moore family were sprawled across their beds, covered in blood. There was no sign of struggle in the house and no evidence to suggest a robbery. Strangely, the murderer had covered the mirrors and windows with sheets, and there was a basin of bloody water left in the kitchen, as if the killer had tried to clean up. Immediately, a massive investigation was launched. The local authorities interviewed the townspeople and collected evidence. The murderer had apparently taken his time, committing the killings methodically. The town was shaken, and rumors began to swirl. Some believed the killer had known the family, while others speculated that it was the work of a drifter passing through. There were no obvious suspects, and no one could figure out why the killer had covered the mirrors and windows. Despite the hard work of the police, the investigation failed to uncover any solid leads. The axe used in the murders belonged to the Moore family, and there was no sign of forced entry into the house. The killer must have had access to the house, and the idea that someone from within the town could be responsible was a terrifying thought for the community. As weeks turned into months, the case grew colder. Several potential suspects were looked into, but none of them were ever proven to be involved. The most significant theory was that the killer had been hiding in the house before the murders. It was theorized that the murderer waited for the family to fall asleep and then attacked. Over the years, numerous theories and potential suspects have emerged, but the case remains unsolved to this day. One of the most prominent suspects was Reverend George Kelly, a traveling preacher who had been in town the night of the murders. He was known to have been acting strangely before the killings and had a history of mental instability. Although Kelly was questioned, he was never charged. Some believe he was the killer, but there's no concrete evidence to support this theory. Another theory is that the killer was a drifter passing through the town. Villisca was a small, quiet place, and it was not uncommon for transient workers to stop in. Some think the killer was someone who happened to be in town and committed the murders in a random act of violence. Some speculated that Josiah Moore may have had enemies due to his business dealings or his involvement in local politics. It's possible that someone with a grudge against him could have committed the murders, but this theory, like the others, remains unproven. There's also the theory that the Stillinger girls were killed because they were witnesses. However, there's little evidence to suggest that their deaths were anything but part of the spree. Despite all these theories, the case has never been definitively solved. The Villisca Axe Murders remain one of the most baffling and terrifying mysteries in American history. The haunting image of the Moore family's bloody remains still lingers in the minds of many, and the true identity of the killer may never be known. The case has become a part of local legend. The Moore house is still standing today and has become a point of interest for true crime enthusiasts and paranormal investigators. Some claim the house is haunted, with reports of strange noises and eerie occurrences. But the question of who committed the murders still haunts those who look into this chilling case. To this day, the Villisca Axe murders remain unsolved, and the identity of the killer may never be known. The town of Villisca, which once felt like a peaceful haven, is now marked by this horrific crime, leaving behind a legacy of fear, mystery, and unanswered questions. If you found this story as chilling as I did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more terrifying true crime stories. Let me know in the comments what you think happened in Villisca. Who do you think committed these horrific murders? Your support means the world to me.